Hey everybody. Uh, I guess obviously not happy Monday. So just kind of like I was talking about in previous episodes, clearly I'm starting to get a little backlogged, and it's my own fault. Our schedule is a little bit different now, and so I have one less day to be able to record these. I don't backlog them like I should, so I ended up getting a little behind on what I was originally planning on doing, and the most embarrassing part is that I put out a fireworks safety dog video after 4th of July weekend. So clearly that's not going to work. So I'm debating on whether it be I still do at least one of these every week because this is just me vamping about my day and stuff that happens beyond my mind, but maybe putting a little bit more thought and effort into the actual episodes on the animals and dogs and stuff, especially with the dog stuff because I always end up, forgetting maybe just one or two, very small. It's rarely ever any crucial piece of information, but it's like, oh, I forgot to mention, like the Thunder shirt. I couldn't remember what the heck the name of that was. It's like if I had, just maybe a few notes in front of me, I would have been able to remember the name of the brand. So, definitely gotta do that. But anyway, so apologies. I'm mostly apologizing to myself. It's something that I really wanted to do and see if I could do it and follow through with it. And I'm really happy that for quite a few months I was able to actually do that. But this was supposed to start growing and evolving, getting better, getting more polished, produced. Still haven't gotten a microphone to replace it, so I definitely feel like if I focus more on quality over quantity, it might make a bit of an improvement on the channel overall. So we'll try it. We'll see how that goes, and hopefully I'll be a little bit more entertaining and informative and streamlined in the future. So that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. So, having said that, I hope you had a good Fourth. It's weird because everybody's dying to get back to normal and have a regular old-fashioned July, with friends and family and the usual. And then there's a Delta variant coming out, so it's like you know we we need interactions with other people. I mean, there's a reason why solitary confinement is the biggest punishment that you can give to somebody. It's like it's actually more of a punishment than throwing them in a cell with killer rapists, what have you. And I get that. So I'm not sure where this is headed. I mean, if we do have another outbreak or whatever, it's clearly not going to be as bad, mostly because so many people are just over it, and I do think that at least with masks in hospitals, that's at least an improvement. It raised awareness, that you should have a backlog of masks and stuff for hospitals. Hospitals should be getting a little bit more careful. Apparently, like right up until AIDS, um, you know, if you're an ER surgeon, you go in, if you go to the ER, oftentimes, yeah, if the surgeons had cuts on their hands, they would, put gloves on. But for the most part, they would just work on you without gloves and then just really scrub up afterwards. And then when AIDS hit, then they got smart about always having gloves on. So I think this is just a new thing with the masks, at least with the hospitals. Um, I am going to walk away. This has never been professional, so this isn't exactly surprising. But I'm hearing horn honking, and it's not to me. Okay, it's the neighbor. I have one neighbor that's close enough. Sorry, one neighbor that's close enough that if there's a horn honk for them, it's hard to tell if it's for them or me. So I just needed to make sure that it was not for me, so I didn't have to stop and start all over again because I still haven't really figured out how to splice stuff together. Although I don't know how well that's going to go if I do. I mean, I like that I just kind of man, I keep saying glass of wine, just shouted to the camera while I was gone. So it's never been professional. I just don't want to have it so cut together that it looks like a Philip DeFranco podcast. Which nothing against him, I actually do enjoy his relatively even keeled news channel. But it jumps around all the time. It's like a cut every 5 seconds, and that could be distracting for some. It could not be for others. I like the more genuine feel of the fact that yeah, you know that I was there for the whole time. Well, even if I wasn't, you know that I was just over do it computer. Uh, I have this thing with such a crappy old laptop. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but every once in a while it'll say on the bottom of the screen, "You actually don't have enough computer to be recording this." So it's been a couple of pausing parts in previous episodes that I didn't catch before downloading it. I think it brings a character, but and it kind of just does show the struggle. I still do intend at one point. I have a couple. I have a folder of just every time that I start recording, I always want to hit play, record a couple. My mouth moving and nothing coming out, which has happened a couple of times, either because I just didn't have it set up properly, or in this case, the webcam speakers just went one day, and no rhyme or reason. I didn't drop it or anything. It just happened. Who knows how old the thing is, so that makes complete sense if that happened. But at the same time, it was just frustrating that it's like I don't. There's never enough time in the day as it is, and now I had to just waste a whole half an hour for nothing. So for whatever reason, I kept those two. I don't know one two, and just, kind of doing like a compilation. I also have another folder which is like bloopers, where it's more me messing up, just being like, crap. So I wouldn't mind putting those out at some point because those would be kind of fun. But until then, here we are. So we were relatively social, on Saturday, Sunday. Monday was a little bit more of a cool down. Um, I did mention it in the fireworks video, but Lilu, I mean, I've taken her shooting before. She doesn't care for it, but she doesn't really, rip off her leash and go running for the hills. So I think that doing that kind of helped because once the fireworks started going off, all she just had was her tail tucked a little bit, and that was about it. She didn't try and hide, cower, or run off, and that's good. But I know a lot of dogs that do, and so I really kind of wish I had that video out sooner. But hey, now it's out there. You have a whole year to watch it before next July, so I don't know if I just keep it on YouTube. Maybe next year it'll have a couple of views before July when they're just like, oh man, July's coming up. Oh, there's fireworks. Maybe I should just look at a fireworks video just in case, and maybe I'll show up. So that's the hope. I mean, I already heard from my dad that I have at least one person out there that watched the video and actually said, hey, there's a couple of good things on there, and I mean that's the whole reason for doing it. And I mean, I'll be honest, retail sucks, but that was about the only rewarding thing about it. When people would walk away feeling like they learned a lot, that their predispositions, their family tradition. My dad's dad did it this way, and then they realized, oh, not only not the way that I put it is I put it into the dog's frame of reference, and that usually is like, oh my god, now that you explain that, that makes so much sense. That explains why this was happening, and now that I know that, I definitely will change my ways. And I happen to mention it too, where it's like, I had this really cool interaction, at the store the other day. So, and that's kind of what this is. This is just kind of me. Almost to be vulgar. It's just like it is kind of me jerking off a little bit, but at the same time, it is also something that I hope will, help people out. And so I don't want to stop, but I do want to, rethink it. That's for sure. And it is funny how I thought that I was going to run out of animals before I was going to run out of dog stuff, and it's just like, well, you don't only have to do animals that are in the store. You can do pretty much, any animal. That's why I'm having fun with the deep dives. I'm learning some. evaluate from there and decide, oh, okay, maybe I should start doing, different videos of stuff. I mean, I still want to talk about dogs, but maybe I can start talking to cat people and seeing if I can, start giving some cat advice too. Literally, the only thing that I know with well, I know a little bit about cats. I mean, I worked at a pet store for 10 years, but I mean, like for cats, I mean, uh, much like dogs, pumpkin puree is really great for almost anything that ails you. So they're having digestive trouble, if they're having, I believe it helps with hairballs. If they, are having constipation or diarrhea, it helps with both, which is really weird. It's almost kind of like Pepto-Bismol in that way, which is like, how can it help with constipation and diarrhea? But it just does. And I know about the litter quitter. So there's a device that you put on the actual toilet, and at first it's just like kind of a tray of cat litter. And so what you do is you slowly move, like the litter box over to the toilet over the course of time. Set the litter box on top of the toilet for a spell, and then you use this litter quitter. And so what it is, it's the litter, and then you take out the center hole, and then you take out the hole, and it basically gets smaller and smaller until they really have no room except for to poop inside the toilet. And then now you have, and it's something that they naturally should want to do, because the whole reason why they like to bury their poo is to mask the smell from predators. And so nothing is going to mask the smell better than it going into water and then you flushing it the next time you happen to come around and see that the cat left the log. So only downside is cats that aren't as graceful anymore, being able to perch on the toilet seat, and also some of them just don't really want to take to it. They're just like, well, no, I like to have my enclosed, away from everything litter, and that's where I like to go. So, I know a few things about cats, but I definitely was never as much of a cat person as I was a dog person, which is weird because I've never been bitten by a cat before. Well, I take that back. I've been bitten by a cat, but obviously it wasn't as traumatic as when I needed to get stitches from getting bitten by a dog. And yet here I am, years later, and dog lover, trainer, groomer, enthusiast, foster parent, and you know, eventually I'd like to do some volunteer stuff. But again, once there's more time, maybe I hear after the whole pandy, people were realizing, working from home and 4-day work where you have your weekend, but you also have an extra day to either get stuff done or pursue hobbies or pursue passions, or you can just go out and help the community. I feel like my whole life I've always been more of a taker. I I hate that I was never that handy, so it's very rare that I come into possession of something. Like, so for instance, a car. I always run every car that I've ever owned into the ground, where it's like I'm sure that it just got scrapped for parts after I was done with it, because I never was great at maintaining it. Just like slowly degraded over time. I feel like any you know household situation I was in, I was never like making it a better place. Like, I kind of admire the people that would work with construction, where you could drive by the house that you built and it's still standing, and if, you built it right, and hopefully there's not a fire or some crazy disaster, that house will still be standing when you're gone. Like, that was nuts. Like, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I had never heard of it before, but they used to, Sears used to have a build-a-home option. So, like, you could actually have the parts of the house shipped to you, and then you can construct them. And they were actually well enough built that there's many of them standing today. I think that started in like the 20s or something, and there's still some that now are about 100 years old and they're still standing, and that's impressive. And you know, to have one of those under my belt, like to yeah, just have you know, hey, this is now better because I was here, or hey, this now exists when it didn't before. I can do that a little bit with instructional videos, but it doesn't feel like nearly enough. It doesn't feel like enough to justify all of the oxygen that I've taken up, all of the um, food that I've consumed, all the gas that I've guzzled, driving from place to place. I always seem to work at least a half an hour away, and I feel like that's just so not helping any of the world that I couldn't either find a closer place or learn how to work from home or do my own thing. So, and it's just a lot of woe is me. It's just like, well, then just get up and do something about it. I know, but maybe but now I know knowing's half the battle, G.I. Joe. Maybe just by saying it out loud and putting it out there, having it semi permanent. I mean, I could technically always delete this anytime that I want to, but it's like hopefully by having it kind of out there in the world that I might be more motivated to do something about it. But yeah, that's that. Other than that, as you can see, I'm back upstairs, no longer downstairs, because it'll be a heat wave one minute, and then it'll just be rainy old London the next, and it's so funny. All right, so where I live, it just keeps raining and raining, and then now it's a heat wave, but it's humid because it's been raining, and then a heat wave and it's humid because it's been raining, and then just as soon as it's not going to be humid anymore, more rain. And everybody I talk to is like, well, we need it. I guess at one point we were having a bit of a drought. It's only going to get worse. I mean, we're not really doing much to try and step up our game with saving the environment, which is mind-numbingly annoying because it's almost like everybody forgot just how much things cleared up when the whole world was on lockdown. I mean, the smog disappeared over LA. Just so much improved in just a very brief time of humans not just hurting the one and only friggin' planet that we have. Sorry to get on the soapbox, but jeez and crow, it's like, you know, I I can't stand this weather, and I'm in one of the more moderate areas where we're not getting, uh, was it Kuwait or someplace that had the hottest temperature on Earth this year, ever. You know, um, there's there's desert creatures passing up from the heat when they're actually like built for it. And, it's just all crazy. But anyway, so the point is that from one day to the next, I keep hearing, it's just like, well, we really need the rain. We really need the rain. It's just like, okay, at what point did we get enough of it? It's what I'm starting to wonder. It's like, have we got enough yet? If it rains all week next week, is that good for a while? Like, how badly do we really still need it? So that's kind of annoying, but yeah, it makes it tough because these are the months where it's you can go out and do some fun outdoor activities, at least different ones from the wintertime. At least where I am. There are wintertime activities, obviously. You can go skiing, snow shooting, ice fishing, snowshoeing. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. So, the more fun out, in my opinion, the more fun outdoor activities we could be doing right now, like kayaking and all that stuff, and it's just like, with the weather being the way it is, it's like, you know, I'm afraid to check the weather for vacation times and stuff because it's like, if it's gonna be bad, then knowing ahead of time will just depress me. If it's gonna be good, that could change, and then I'll get annoyed that it wasn't right when I originally said it. So I'm just trying to like have it come as it may, and that's the cool thing about when I do the island and stuff. If it rains literally the whole time that I'm on the island, and I just have to stay in the cabin and read and play cribbage with my girl. Maybe like if it's warm enough and it's raining and I just don't really care about getting wet, maybe just going out kayaking anyway in the rain. It can still be a fun time. I mean, you're still away from it all. No cell, well, very limited cell service. What I'm trying to say. It's like you can still. I I enjoy being able to like I think I mentioned it about Josh. Shout out Josh Ledger, Sand Dune Customs. I've been really bad about doing the local shoutouts, and I do apologize. See, that's something like that's why I want to have like a call sheet or whatever you call it in the biz, so that I make sure that I'm hitting all the boxes. Like I want to start having segments, and I'm not gonna be able to remember to do the segments if I don't plan ahead for them. So, um, but yeah, like I said about Josh, is he's somebody that you can be stuck in an elevator with and still have a great time. Like you don't have to. He's the kind of guy that you don't have to have a pretense, like oh, let's get together for drinks. Like you don't have to get drunk with him to have a good time. And I like to hopefully think that I can be that kind of guy too, where it's like even if I'm just stuck in a cabin with it raining, I can still entertain myself and others, um, plenty, and not have to worry about like, oh, there's nothing to do on board. I always, I kind of take a little bit of pride in that. Like when I was young, I always hated people that would say that they were bored, and I found that that was rarely ever the case with me. It's like even if I was just like even if I was grounded in my room and all I could find was like a piece of paper and a pencil, you know, I'm no longer in timeout. Now I have, stuff I can do with the paper and pencil. So I always took pride in never being bored because I always thought that it was such a pretentious thing to say where it's just like, you know, is the world here to entertain you? What do they call it these days? Is it first player syndrome? Where you think that you're the main character? It's something like that. But yeah, I guess I never had like the assumption that something needs to be happening to me in order for me to be interested. It's like no, you go out and you make the interesting. So I try to adapt that philosophy in life. I almost rarely ever succeed, but I still make the effort. And sometimes just making the effort is enough to be able to be like, all right, well, I wasn't too much of a lump in the log, a piece of crap for that day. I mean, it's so weird that I'm just that duality of man where if left to my own devices on a day off, I absolutely have the predisposition that I could just stay on the couch the entire day, stream all of the streaming services, and never really be motivated to even get up and do some dishes. There's that side of me, and then there's the other side of me that feels like an absolute piece of crap at the end of the day, having not done any of the things, and it sucks that I'm predisposed to being able to be lazy, even though somewhere deep inside that's not really how I'm built because I feel the effects later. So getting motivated is so tough. But when I do, at the end of the day, I feel accomplished. Even if it's like the little things, like I said, like oh my God, look at that empty sink. Holy crap. The clothes are actually no longer on the bed; they're in their drawers where they're supposed to be. Oh, it's so bad. So depending on whether it's warm or cold, like you can sleeping either upstairs or downstairs, and so that means that at one point, at any given point, there's at least one bed that has clothing on it because I just can't be moved to. Because it's just one of those never-ending things. Dishes and laundry, those are the never-ending things where it's just like, didn't I just do that yesterday? Yep. Well, there's some more today. I mean, that's how it's always going to go for the rest of your life, unless you just decide to, you know, use disposable everything, which would be horrific, for eating. And even then, it's still not very possible. You're still going to have a pot or a pan or something to scrub. And unless you want to live in a nudist colony, and even nudists wear clothing at points, because it's necessary, there's always going to be that laundry and dishes. And, I mean, thank God that we live in the generation that we do now, where it's like, now I can literally just, put a bud in my ear, and I can listen to podcasts while I'm doing the dishes, and that at least makes them somewhat tolerable. That and some wine. I think there's always something to be said for doing chores with at least like maybe a glass in you. Um, I mean, I know that nothing feels better after cutting the lawn than a nice drink of something, but yeah, what do they call it? First world problems. Although you shouldn't use that anymore, I guess, because calling some places third world is offensive. It's hard to keep track. I mean, I've gotten really good about I never use it that much, but now I'm very, very conscious about not using the phrase off the reservation, because that's actually really bad origins where it's, like, it's off the reservation supposed to mean crazy, but that's literally talking about an indigenous person that is. And so, yeah, some phrases they need to die a quiet death, like off the reservation. Oh my God! Like when you actually break it down and think about it, it's just like, ooh, God. I mean, you don't think of that stuff when you're a kid, like Indian burn. Used to give each other Indian burns. You do the thing on the arm. Like almost all of the phrases back in the day had some race attached to it, like Chinese fire drill. I mean, like I'm just bringing. Sorry to, I mean, I'm bringing them up in order to bring awareness to it, not because I want to bring it back. I'm glad that it no longer happens, but it's just funny when you like think back, where you're just like, God, yeah, there was a lot of them. I think I even heard somebody at one point, they were over in the fast lane, and they needed to suddenly be over in the, they're all at once. I mean, they checked their mirrors, they were safe, but they still did it all at once, and they called it a Puerto Rican sweep. And I was just like, heck. So yeah, those kind of things, definitely need to go. So I mean, this whole cancel culture is infuriating at times. Like we swung so in the wrong direction, but at the same time, I am glad for some of the changes. I don't see any major changes happening, which is what's infuriating. So okay, I mean maybe that is a good thing to do, and maybe they do belong in the museum instead of in the town square. But I mean, can we not say mission accomplished like friggin' back in the day with George W? Um, it's nuts. I don't know, I do talk about drugs at points, like the whole war on drugs thing and how stupid it is. But because of the wars, like the perpetual war, it's actually a tactic that I first learned about in Star Wars of all things. Like Palpatine, like he starts, like he basically gets into power because he is always going against somebody. Like so it starts off with like trade troubles, and then eventually it shifts it to the Jedi or whatever. I can't remember the exact thing, but I guess if you were born after a certain period, like I think if you were born after 2001, America has been at war 100% of your life, which is just nuts to think about because they can call it a war on anything, a war on terror, a war on drugs, like a war on an intangible thing. In some cases tangible, but a war on a thing that, well, there's never not going to be drugs. I mean, you know, there's never not going to be terrorism, unfortunately. And I hope that there eventually won't be, but and drugs is such a, well, and terror, but I mean, drugs is such a uh, arbitrary word. I don't know if that's the right use of arbitrary, but um, caffeine's a drug. Tylenol's a drug. Heroin's a drug. It's like, did we just put coffee, aspirin, and heroin in the same category? This is the same word for all three of those things. That just seems wrong. Like, technically, isn't insulin a drug? Like, life-saving stuff. Uh, Kind of like right in the middle stuff. Although we do over caffeinate ourselves. That's ridiculous. I was actually like, I mean, I don't know why I'm doing other podcast material, but that was actually kind of cool about the whole caffeine thing where, I did already know that it's like, the plants figured it out and then we did it and used it because we can't artificially create anything quite as good. Or if we do, it has a buttload of negative consequences. But yeah, I mean, just go watch the episode if you want to. I just thought the really neat thing was that apparently at one point the government gave spiders a bunch of different drugs. So they gave them, LSD or marijuana or even caffeine, and then saw how they built a web. And the eye-opening one about that was that the craziest web weaving was off of caffeine, over coke, over heroin, over marijuana. The caffeine web was the most jacked up one. So I just thought that that was hilarious and interesting. Apparently us, primates and bees, primates and bees are about the only ones that actually enjoy caffeine, and everything else doesn't. It's actually a negative for them. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of fascinating, and of course, this is all happening like while my boss is doing a coffee run, and I'm trying to burn through this pistachio that I had because you know no offense, so I'm not going to name the company, but no offense to the company that I'm currently having the pistachio coffee with, but it does not hold a candle to nhcoffee.com. Again, shout out to the locals. You know, that was the coffee that got me onto them in the first place, and it hasn't been beat since. Like, they have a lot of amazing flavors. I like them all. None of them quite smell or taste as good as the pistachio. So I saw another company did pistachio. I was like, oh, interesting. Never heard of it before in my life. Then after that, one company does it. And one of them is nhcoffee.com, based out of Dover. The other one is a New England-based coffee company. So I was just like, I wonder if they were taking a page out of their book, or if it was coincidence. We'll never know. But it just does not add up. It does not compare. So I'm trying to burn through that. And these talking on the podcast where it's like, you know, he tried to just do it every Saturday so that it gave him a really good buzz and made him super productive. And I know so many people that they drink it throughout the entire day, and it visibly does nothing to them unless they don't have their coffee. And then, oh, don't mess with me until I've had my coffee. It's just like it's an addiction. It's just a mildly annoying one, so it isn't anything that we really care to correct. But it made me realize, just like, I could get by. I could easily get by with no coffee, maybe the occasional tea if I'm like really feeling like dog poop. Sorry, Lila. I mean, I'm sure you don't care for it either. I mean, she's the type of dog that doesn't try to eat it, so I mean, I'm sure she's just like, yeah, get rid of it. Get in the bag, get it out of here. Um, we got to be able to do something better than those bags, though. I wonder. I know that they do ones that decompose a little bit easier, but then again, those things are the scariest to try and grip a bag, grip a piece of poo with. Especially if you have to carry it around for any length of time, like if they poop on the walk, those things are scary. They'll tear in a second, so then you feel like you want to use two, and then it's just like, oh, now how economical am I being? But they gotta have a bag that can break down easier than just a plastic one, but also maybe counteract the effects. Because um, carnivorous and omnivorous poo is obviously not healthy for the grass. Um, I mean, and many other things. It's certainly not fertilizer, but maybe there's something that you can break it down. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. It's always so much fun coming up with $1 million idea that you're never going to follow through on. Um, anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. I will probably let you go so that I can get on with the rest of the day. The sink. Speaking of dishes, I I got to do something about that. I have this thing where I don't like the height of the dishes to get past the height of the sink, because angle you have to angle the spout over so that you can kind of get a cup in kind of like kind of tilted so that it can barely fill up. You can't even get the full cup of water. That just drives me insane. And not only is it past that point, but there's now it's kind of spilled out over onto the what do you call it? The stove and the counter, because it's just there was a lot of cooking during the weekend, and I try and do a couple of them and have them dry, but I'm lazy. It's just like there's only so much room in the drying rack, and then it's like, well, I mean, I could waste so much extra energy. So, I can talk myself into being so friggin' lazy. Oh, why waste all of that extra energy drying the dishes so you can make room for more dishes to be done when those will drip dry eventually anyway? And I can be so much more productive doing something else. And I'm not going to be productive doing something else. I'm going to set them in there. I'm going to let them drip dry while I go and turn on the TV or something. So, yeah, I'm awful, but I'm saying it out loud. I'm admitting it, and I'm working on it, and that's all anybody can ask. Eventually, if you live long enough, you become the best version that you can be, and then you die. But you can at least look back in your previous years and be like, well, at least I'm not as bad as that, you know. And I think that's what's important. I mean, I've talked about how, you know, from 0 to 10 is just embarrassing. I mean, you're so dependent on other people. From 10 to 20, you're becoming a little bit more dependent, but you're still really figuring stuff out, and there's still a lot of first player syndrome. That's what we're calling it until I figure out what it actually is. And then, you know, the 20s to 30s is usually just oh my god, even more bad decisions, but paying the consequences of it a little bit more. And then hopefully by the 30s, you've started to, you know, kind of turn it around a little bit. At least, you know, in the late 30s, I certainly feel like I'm slightly better, but yeah, I know, I definitely got to let you go. It keeps on saying that I don't have enough to run it, so this is probably all just halting gibberish anyway. But thank you guys for guys and gals. Guys, again, you know, you don't want to do, you know, I grew up with guys, meaning both guys and girls, but there is a lot of stuff like that that is masculine and it's supposed to encompass both, but it is just kind of like a little passive aggressive way of keeping the patriarchy. So, la-di-da-di, everybody, I appreciate you. There you go.